Pieces. BNP stands for Bits and Pieces. It's a company that operates retail stores. So this is the second tutorial with relevant costing. We already did one on Monday when we met. So Bits and Pieces operates a retail store selling spares and accessories for the car market. The store has previously only opened for 6 days per week for the 50 working weeks in the year, but BNP is now considering also opening on Sundays. The sales of the business on Monday through Saturday averages at 10,000 per day, with average gross profit of 70% earned. So on normal days, they are currently operating on the 6 days of the week, Monday to Saturday, and they are making 10,000 on average per day, with their average gross profit at 70%, right? So BNP expects that the gross profit earned on a Sunday will be 20% points lower than the average earned on other days. So this question, they are trying to consider if they should open on Sundays, right? And they are anticipating that the profit that they will earn on Sundays will be 20% less, which means 70 minus 20, that will be 50%. And that is because they plan to offer substantial discounts and promotions on a Sunday to attract customers. Given the price reduction, Sunday sales revenues are expected to be 60% more than the average daily sales revenues for the other days. So because they will give discounts, they are expecting that the Sunday sales will be 60% more than the sales on the other days, which is 10,000 multiplied by 1.60, right? Now, these Sunday sales estimates are for new customers only, with no allowance being made for those customers that may transfer them from other days. BNP buys all its goods from one supplier. This supplier gives a 5% discount on all the purchases if annual spend exceeds 1 million. So if you buy things that exceed 1 million, then you get a 5% discount. It has been agreed to pay time and a half to sales assistants that work on Sundays. The normal hourly rate is $20 per hour. In total, 5 sales assistants will be needed for the 6 hours that the store will be open on a Sunday. So we need 5 sales assistants that will be paid overtime at 1.5, and they will work for 6 hours on Sundays. They will also be able to take half a day off during the week. Staffing levels will be allowed to reduce slightly during the week to avoid extra costs being incurred. The staff will have to be supervised by a manager currently employed by the company and paid So the manager is currently employed by the company and paid an annual salary of 80,000. If he works on a Sunday, he will take an equivalent time off during the week when the assistant manager is available to cover for him at no extra cost to BNP. He will also be paid a bonus of 1% of the extra sales generated on the Sunday project. So the only thing that will be affected is when it concerns to the manager, is the bonus that he will get, because he's not getting an extra added to his salary. He's getting time off at no cost to the company, and the only thing that he will be paid is the 1% on sales for his bonus, right? The store will have to be lit at a cost of 30. I just muted you. What is going on? Can you mute yourselves, please? So the store will have to be lit at a cost of $30 per hour and heated at a cost of $45 per hour. The heating will come on 2 hours before the store opens in the 25 winter weeks to make sure it is warm enough for customers to come in at opening time. The store is not heated on the other weeks. So the question says at the beginning, we have 50 weeks in a year, right? Now, 25 weeks of those 50 weeks is winter time. And in winter, we heat up the store for 8 hours because we have to start the heating on 2 hours before we open, right? And we open for 6 hours. So in winter, the heating comes on. Winter is the only time actually that we need the heat, and we use it for 8 hours instead of the 6. So the rent of the store amounts to $420 per annum. So we pay rental for the store at $420,000 per annum. And we are required to calculate whether the Sunday opening incremental revenue exceeds the incremental costs over the year, and we should ignore inventory movement. And on this basis, we should reach a conclusion as to whether Sunday opening is financially justifiable. Can we justify this shop or this store opening on Sundays in addition to the 6 other days? So we have to consider now the relevant cost. Now, just looking at this question, which of these costs look relevant?
Can I try?
Please go.
I think the daily sales, the 10,000 per day. I think it's relevant.
Why is it relevant? If we start selling on Sunday, will it change? Will the sales on Monday change?
The sales when? On Monday?
Yeah, because the 10,000 is the sales on Monday to Saturday.
Oh, no, they won't.
So it won't change, right?
No.
So then is it relevant if it won't change?
No, it's not.
Yeah. What's the next one? You see, now you actually got a way, you are reminded of a way of what to ask yourself. Will this cost change if I make the decision that we are trying to consider? In this case, if we start opening on Sundays, will the 10,000 change? It won't change. But what about this one says that the Sunday sales revenues are expected to be 160% more than the average daily sales. Is that a relevant cost or not? I mean, is that a relevant revenue?
It's relevant.
Why is it relevant?
Because it's affecting I mean, it has to take place on a Sunday, and we are here asking ourselves what if we, I don't know. But I feel like it's relevant because it has to do with the Sunday.
If we start opening on Sundays, will we earn that money?
Yes.
If we don't, will we earn that money?
The sales are expected to increase.
Yeah, but if we don't now open on Sundays, will we earn it?
No.
Exactly. So that means it's relevant. If it's different between the alternatives. The alternatives are, on one side you have, should we open on Sundays? On the other one you have, should we not open on Sundays and just continue operating on 6 days? So if we start opening on Sundays, then our revenue will increase by 160%, right? Or by 60%, not 160, by 60%. But if we don't open on Sundays, then we don't get that increment, right? Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. What else? I want to ask, what about the
discounts? The discount.
The discount.
And
the discount, we would have to see if we are currently buying things that are worth 1 million. So that for now, we don't know if it's relevant because For us to see that that is relevant, it will only be relevant if we are currently selling below 1 million, and then the sales on if we start selling, no, I mean buying, because we only get a discount if we are buying things that are worth over a million, right? So we would have to see if our current costs are below a million, then if they will be above a
Yes, your
million.
network is breaking.
Is it breaking? Is it better now?
Mm.
Can you hear me?
Just proceed. Let's see how it goes.
Okay. So for the discount to be relevant, it would have to be different, which means we would have to be selling currently, we would have to be buying actually currently things that are below a million. And if we start selling on Sundays, if those things that we are buying now go above a million, that means we are getting a discount, then it would be a relevant cost. But we don't know how much the current sales are, or how much the current cost of goods are. So we are not sure if it's relevant or not. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what about the?
Ma'am,
Yes.
so I have a question at 60% there.
Mm-hmm.
So it only had to be relevant if it's above the sale. Let me say if it was less, it's not going to be relevant or what?
No, it will be relevant. It's only relevant if it's different between the alternatives, which means if we start opening on Sundays, that is the first alternative, because that is the decision we are making, right? Whether the sales will decrease or reduce, then as long as it's different, if we open on Sundays versus if we don't open on Sundays, if the cost is incurred or the revenue will be earned on one side, but it will not be earned on the other side, then it's a relevant cost or revenue. Does that make sense? In this case, if we open on Sundays, then we get the increased sale. If we were going to increase, or we were going to get a loss, that loss would be relevant too, because we would not make that loss if we don't open on Sundays. Does that make sense?
Oh, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so
Okay,
the
thank you.
decision is based on the different alternatives. You have to determine the two alternatives. What decision am I making? Should we open on Sundays or not? That's where you need to start always. What is the decision I'm making? Okay, does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Okay, so what about the overtime of the sales assistant, which we have to pay a time and a half? We have to pay them more on Sundays. Is that one relevant or not?
Relevant.
I think it is,
Why do you think it is?
Because
because if we don't open the shop on Sundays, then it's avoidable.
Yes. Okay, so that one is relevant. And the next one is the manager will get a 1% bonus from the sales generated on the Sunday project. So is that one relevant or not?
It's relevant.
It's irrelevant.
If we don't open on Sundays, he won't earn the 1%, right?
yes.
Yeah, that's why it's relevant. Okay, so the next one is the lighting. We have to light to lit the store up for 6 hours on Sundays. So is that one a relevant cost or not?
It's relevant
Why is it relevant?
because if we don't open on Sundays, then the cost for Sundays is not there.
Yes. And the 8 hours for 25 weeks, the $45 per hour for heat that will incur for 8 hours for 25 weeks, is that one relevant or not?
I think it's irrelevant because either way it will It will happen whether we open on Sunday or not.
Why will it happen either way?
Because it's supposed to be done weekly. It didn't come 2 hours before this. Yeah, I'm talking about professional.
No, this says, look at the sentence again. So the light and the heat are together. On Sundays, you have to light the store up, right, for 6 hours. And during winter, you have to heat the store up for 8 hours for 25 weeks only, which means it's only during winter. So is that relevant or not?
It's relevant.
Yes, it is relevant because we are just talking about Sunday here. That's why it's 8 hours. For the other date, it's probably 40 hours a week. But then for this, we are only, that's why we are talking about 8 hours, which is 2 hours before opening time, plus the 6 hours for which the shop is open. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. What about the rent, which we pay every year?
That one
It's
is
not
irrelevant.
irrelevant.
Yes, it's irrelevant because whether we open on Sundays or not, we will still pay that rent, okay? Okay, so let's do the cost. I'm just gonna go to the solution because we've already identified the relevant costs. So we are just going to see how we have calculated to come to the conclusion, okay? So notice, first of all, the sales for on the average days is 10,000, right? So average sales is 10,000. Now we are trying to calculate the sale on Sundays because it's not given. So it's 10,000 on Sundays, and the gross profit, we are told by the question that it's 70%, right? So on Sundays, we are told that it's 60% more than the average, which means 60% of 10,000 is how much?
16,000.
60% of 10,000 is 16,000.
Oh, it's 6,000.
Yes, it's 6,000. So you add the 6,000 to the 10,000 to get the 16,000, right? So because it's 60% more. So the sales on Sundays, every Sunday you are going to earn 16,000. Now the gross profit on Sundays, we were told that it's going to be 20% less than on the average days because we are giving people a discount. So now 20 minus 70, that gives you 50. So the gross profit on Sundays is 50%. So if the gross profit is 50%, then that makes the gross profit 8,000. How did you get that? 50 multiplied by 50% multiplied by 16,000, that gives you 8,000. Is that clear for everybody? Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so and then you now convert this. You see this 16,000 is for every Sunday, right? You now have to convert it to the annual sales. You multiply it by 50 because we only have one Sunday each week and we have 50 weeks a year. So you multiply it by 50 weeks. So you get 800,000. This is your incremental revenue. That is your 800,000 is your total sales from Sundays, right? So 800,000, 50% is the gross profit. That means your gross profit is 400,000. You can either multiply the 50% by the 800,000 or you multiply the 8,000 by 50 weeks, you get 400,000. That is your total gross profit for the year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So, and then you have covered sales now. You have now to move on to purchasing costs. So for purchasing, you have your current annual spending. Right now, what you are currently spending every year is you are working 6 days. Every day you make 10,000, right? And for that, from that 10,000, you make a profit of 70%. Now, sales minus gross profit gives you cost of sales, right? So you are trying to calculate your cost of sales. So 10%, 10,000 multiplied by 70%, that's gross profit, right? So if 70% is gross profit, sales is 100%, then your cost of sales must be 100% minus 70, which is 30%. So this 30% here, this is your cost of sales percentage. So if you multiply that 30% by 10,000, you get your cost of sales per day. So cost of sales per day, which is 10,000 multiplied by 30%, you will get 3,000 multiplied by 6 days, you get your total cost of sales per week, and then you multiply what you get by 50 weeks, so you can get your cost of sales per year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So then that means our cost of sales is 900, right? So our cost of sales now is 900,000. Now we have to calculate our...
Can you just explain what you just said about the cost of sales?
How do you calculate profit? Gross profit? How do you calculate gross profit?
Sales minus cost of sale.
Yeah, so then if you are given sales and you are given gross profit, how will you calculate the cost of sales?
Or you deduct the gross profit from the sales.
Yes. So now you are given that.
Ed.
No, you will deduct.
Yes.
So you will deduct from your sales, you have to deduct your gross profit, so you get your cost of sales, right? So now you are given sales, that's 100%, right? And then you have gross profit, that is 70. So if your sales is 100, your gross profit is 70, how much is your cost of sales?
30%.
30%. So if it's 30%, then you take your total sales per day multiplied by 30%. Now you get your cost of sales per day, right? But you are trying to calculate per annum, which is per year. Now this is per day. Currently you are selling for 6 days. So you multiply that amount per day multiplied by 6. So you can get your cost of sales per week, which is in 6 days. Yeah. Do you understand that? Mm-hmm. And then you now multiply, because now you have the per week amount, you have to multiply it by your total weeks so you can get per year. And your per year amount is 900,000. Does that make sense?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You could also just even go ahead and say 10,000 multiplied by 6 multiplied by 50, and then the total that you get, you multiply by 30%, it still gives you the same amount. So whichever one you decide to transfer or to transfer to the yearly amount, and then you apply the 30% to that amount, it's also okay.
Okay.
Okay. So now you have to now calculate your cost of sales right now if you were to consider, if you were to go ahead with the Sunday sales, right? Okay, so the relevant cost question that somebody asked, if the discount question is relevant, I mean, if the discount, 5% discount is relevant, now we have the answer that it is relevant indeed, because we are currently, our cost of sales right now is 900,000, which is 100,000 below the threshold, which is 1 million, right? For us to get the 5% discount. So if that's the case, we already know that just by looking at this, the profit is 400,000, the sales is 800,000. So we already know that that cost of sales will make this 900,000 go beyond 1 million. So we are going to earn a discount, right? So you take now your cost of sales, 900, plus your cost of sales for Sundays. How do you get that? You can even just go ahead and take your total sales for Sundays minus your total gross profit for Sundays. That gives your total cost of sales for Sundays. So you add those two costs of sales together, and then you multiply by 95%. Why are you multiplying by 95%? Because you get a discount, 5% discount. So you have to multiply by 95% because you have to recognize the discount that you get because you are not paying a full amount. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So you take your cost of sales on total cost of sales on your normal sales plus your cost of sales for Sunday, and then you multiply it by 95% to get your cost of sales after you got the discount, which is 1.235, okay? 1.235 million, that is your cost of sales on Sundays, I mean, including Sundays after you have gotten a discount. Does that make sense? Is there anyone who's confused? Okay, so we now have this new cost of sales, right? Compared to the old cost of sales of 900,000, the incremental cost of sales will now be 335,000. That is the incremental cost of sales, which is the new cost of sales, or the difference between the new cost of sales and the old cost of sales. That is the differential amount. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, so that is your relevant cost, right? This is what you are considering when you're considering the relevant cost, because you consider the difference. You are not going to consider the 900,000, and this 1.235 has the 900,000 within it. So you have to take out the 900,000. So you only consider the increase, which is 335. Okay, so we have considered sales. We have considered the purchasing cost, which is cost of sales. And now we are going on to the next relevant cost, which is staff cost. Your staff cost, we said the normal salaries for the sales assistant right now is $20. And if they start working on Sundays, they are going to earn a time and a half, which is 1.5. So you multiply 20 multiplied by 1.5, and then you multiply it by 6 hours because that they are going to work for 6 hours, and then you get your total relevant cost per person, right? If you multiply that by the 5 sales assistants, you get your total relevant cost per Sunday. And now you have to multiply it by 50 so you can get your total relevant cost per year. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. So your total relevant cost for staff cost is 45,000. And the manager's costs, the salary for the manager is a sunk cost, and there will be no additional cost because he's not getting an increase in salary, he's only getting a bonus. Now for his bonus, we said that he's getting 1% of the incremental sales. The incremental sales is 800,000 that we calculated up here. So 1% of that is 8,000. So he's getting 8,000, and that 8,000 is a relevant cost because the manager is going to earn 1% of the incremental sales from the Sunday. Okay, so the next one is lighting. The lights, we pay $30 per hour, and we are paying for 6 hours because we open for 6 hours on Sundays. And then you multiply that by 50 weeks, you get 9,000, which is your total lights per year. So you have 9,000 total lights. Okay, that is your lighting cost. And your heating cost is the same, $45 per hour multiplied by 8. Why are we using 8 and not 6? Because the question says we open for 2 extra, we put the heat on for 2 extra hours so that the customers don't get cold when we start working. So 2 plus 6, that makes 8. So 45 multiplied by 8 hours multiplied by 25 weeks. We are using 25 weeks and not 50 weeks because we only put the heat on in summer, and summer is 25 weeks. The question said that, okay? So 25 weeks multiplied by 8 hours multiplied by $45 per hour, that gives your heating cost of 9,000 per year. And the last one is rent. Rent, we have already decided, is a sunk cost, so it's not relevant. So now what's left is to take our total revenue, take your incremental revenue minus your incremental cost. So you can get your incremental profit or gain, or it can even be a loss, right? So our incremental revenue is 800,000. We got it from up there. Your sales for Sundays is 800,000 minus, you take 335 from your purchasing costs plus 45 from your staff costs plus 8,000, the manager's bonus, plus 9,000, your lighting costs, plus 9,000 for heating. And this in brackets, these are your total incremental costs. So if you deduct those from your incremental revenue, you will get a profit of 394,000. So based on that, what should we advise this company? Should they open on Sundays or not?
I think they should.
Why do you think they should?
There's a profit of 394.
Yes, we are making a profit of 394,000 if we open on Sundays. Does that make sense for everybody, or is there anyone who's confused? Okay, I'm assuming that
Yes,
it does.
I just wanted to join now. That's why I'm get somehow lost.
Huh?
I just wanted to join the class right now, and now I'm just maybe get lost. So
You joined the
I
class
don't
now?
know. Yes.
Then you are going to have to do me a favor and read this question and then watch the recording and see if you understand. If you don't, then you should send me an email and ask specific questions, okay?
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So, but first read the question, and then because you will not understand it if you don't read the question, you have to read the question so that when we are discussing, when you watch the recording or the discussion of which one is relevant or not, you understand why it's relevant as well.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay. So then we are recommending that we should open on Sundays because we are getting an incremental profit of 394. So B asks us whether the manager's pay deal or time off bonus is likely to motivate him. So this one I want you to read for yourselves because it's the qualitative factors that we have discussed. It's just talking about the possibilities that the manager might be demotivated if this happens and or motivated if that happens. And yeah, so please read that on your own. And C is also asking, briefly discuss whether offering substantial price discounts and promotions on Sundays is a good suggestion. And C is also just the qualitative factors, which I think the one that stood out for me was because we are giving a discount, we might lose customers on the other days because the question even said that, go to the question, it even said that these Sunday sales, the 60% increase, right? These Sunday sales are for new customers only with no allowance being made for those customers that may transfer from other days. That means we did not consider, or the question did not consider, the fact that if you are giving discounts on Sundays, your customers, the people that buy you on Mondays, will stop buying on Mondays and just wait for Sundays, right? They might do that. So it didn't consider that. That is a qualitative factor that you will have to do, or they will have to consider if they were a business. And please, I'm just asking you to go through that because with qualitative factors, it can be anything. So you just have to go through it and perhaps just get your mind opened of the possibilities because the questions will be different, but the ideas, I don't even know, they might be different as well, but just form your ideas based on what the question is saying. It doesn't have to be the same with the qualitative factors, especially if the question is being handwritten. It's anything, everybody can say anything. It's a theoretical question, so you are expecting different answers. So it's just however way you understand it is okay. Do you have any questions?